Yo, so we all know about the big three: One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach. And even though these three tend to get grouped together, I've noticed a massive difference in their reputations and legacies. Look at One Piece, it's the longest currently ongoing series in Shonen Jump, and the one with the highest sales. And Naruto is a cultural phenomenon with a successful sequel in Boruto. I mean, successful depending on how you think about it. It got fans, I guess. And then there's Bleach. And I think this lack of a long-lasting legacy is why I ended up reading Bleach last, because it felt like Bleach had so much less of an impact on people than One Piece and Naruto did, so it felt like it wasn't even worth my time. If the people that haven't read it aren't putting it up on the same level as those to begin with, it must be the worst one in the three. Stupid. And because of that, I was fully prepared to hate on Bleach. I was going into this trying to be a hater, but I ended up being pleasantly surprised. And to be honest, I think I like Bleach more than Naruto. And it's crazy because Naruto was the first in the big three that I watched, but now that I've read or watched all three, I never thought I'd say this, but Naruto might be the worst in the big three.
Why would you say that?
Is this nigga serious?
But today I just want to talk about a lot of the things that I loved in Bleach and some of the things that I was kind of mad about. Okay, I have to start with this. Zanpakuto is such a raw concept for a power system. Like, I don't care how many times I see somebody unlock their Bankai or unlock their Shikai or upgrade their Zanpakuto in any way, that shit is always hype. Because I just love power systems where the power is tied to who you are as a person. All the way down to the way you even get the power to begin with. Having to pour your spirit energy into your Asauchi, and it kind of forms around your soul and your personality. I think that's fire as and I also just love power systems where the power has a mind of its own, and the way that sometimes your Zanpakuto just isn't gonna do what you want it to do because it don't feel like it.
I don't really feel like it.
It kind of reminds me of Nen Beast in Hunter x Hunter, if you've read the Succession War arc. And it creates this unique relationship between the sword and its user, where it's like, it's not your ally, but it's not your enemy either. And the way that each sword has its own pride and ideals, to the point where unless you can make it bend to your will and make it respect you, it's just not gonna do what you want it to do. Shit, it won't even tell you its name. Kenpachi Sword was like, I don't fuck with you like that, gang. I'm not telling you shit about me. And those deep personal connections that you have to form with your sword are so, that shit is hard. Like those talks that Ichigo would always have with Zangetsu, you are a real nigga. I don't care what nobody say, that's a real nigga right there. The way that Zangetsu and Ichigo's relationship develops over the course of the story is exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Like, the sword has character development. The sword goes through a period of denial, not wanting to let Ichigo get into harm's way, and eventually decides, you know what, this nigga a grown ass man, I gotta let him do what he gotta do. That's a sword. And because of how much personal work we know it takes to unlock that shit, whenever we see a new Bankai, that shit is always hype as like, Bankai is just so raw, even though some niggas Bankai is better than others. Like, we got some real cool ones like Toshiro and Rukia. Oh, or Shunsui shit. That Bankai was so hard. And then we have other ones like Soy Phones. Obviously, I've heard of people talk about Bankais before, but I thought they were going to be more like domain expansion. But they ended up being more like transformations than anything else, except Byakuya's. His Bankai was always so weird to me because everyone else's is like a transformation, and his is the only one that's like a domain expansion. Well, I guess now that I think about it, Kisuke's was kind of like a domain expansion too, but most of them aren't, is my point. Another thing that I love about the power system is the way that it contrasts with the Quincy's. The Quincy's and the Soul Reapers are exact opposites in like every way when it comes to their powers. We use a sword, they use bows. We use the soul energy inside of us, they collect theirs from the outside world. We cleanse hollows, they eradicate them. And through just these differences in the power system, it sets up this feeling that the difference between Soul Reapers and Quincy's is completely irreconcilable.
I'm gone when I see you. It's on sight.
Which lends itself well to the story later on when we start exploring that relationship between Soul Reapers and Quincy's. I just love the story involving the Quincy's so much. We'll talk about that later. Even the origins of the power system are cool as and I usually don't like when stories tell us the origins of the power system because it kind of ruins the magic. But in Bleach, they somehow found a way to make that enhance the magical feeling. Especially with Ichibe, the way that he talks about naming things and makes it feel so mystical and important only leads the relationship between Zanpakuto and their user to feel more sacred. Same thing with what's the nigga with the mohawk name? Bro, what's that? Nemaya. Even when we meet Nemaya, the way that he describes the relationship between an Asauchi and its Soul Reaper just makes everything that Ichigo has gone through with Zangetsu feel that much deeper. But I think what I like about Bleach even more than the power system is the characters. I'm a characters type of person. If a show has good, likable characters, it will not be hard to keep me watching. And I love the Bleach characters for the most part. I say for the most part because there were a few characters in Bleach that's just like, why the f do you exist? Like Don Kanonji.
Who the fuck is this nigga, bro?
Why? Why did they even introduce him? He literally showed up, was just annoying for a few chapters, and never shows up again until like we're damn near at the end. Same with Ganju. And Ganju really pisses me off because I liked Ganju. He had like an interesting character arc. I think there were interesting things they could have done with his character, but they just drop him.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
And we don't see him again until the final war arc. And even when we see him at the final war arc, he don't do shit. And they go out of their way to do this whole slow rollout of revealing that he's Ichigo's cousin. And by the time we get that reveal, it's like, who the cares? I don't care about this nigga no more. But aside from the occasional misstep, Bleach characters are fire. Especially our main core group of Ichigo, Uryu, Renji, Rukia, Chad, and Orihime. I f***s with them niggas, man. Let me start off talking about Chad, cause y'all gotta give my nigga Chad a break. Cause leading up to reading Bleach, the way niggas talk about Chad, I was expecting this nigga to get thrashed on. It wasn't that bad. Like, yeah, Chad don't get no W's, but he don't be getting like embarrassed.
Are you sure about that?
Except that one time, I don't remember who it was, but Chad ran up on some nigga trying to fight him. That nigga broke the f out his arm, just twisted that shit. That was the time where I was like, Chad, you need to sit your big ass down. But Chad's pretty good. I like him. I like him as a character. And then Renji. Renji is just the Vegeta of Bleach. He look cool. He gonna say some cool shit. He cool peoples. But you be getting whooped on. Just so Ichigo could come in and look like the good guy. They be home, my nigga Renji so bad. It's so bad they even got that one meme. Have y'all seen that? Have y'all seen that meme? Save my bitch, big bro Ichigo. I hate when slander memes are actually funny, bro. Cause I like Renji. I don't want to be laughing at him, but come on, bro. And it's crazy because that was actually a good character moment for both Renji and Ichigo. But now every time I see it, I can't help but think about that meme. But that whole arc, the Soul Society arc, was so fire, bro. Specifically for Renji, the way that they introduced Renji and Rukia's relationship, it makes it feel so natural. As soon as they started interacting, I was like, oh yeah, these two are gonna end up together. And Rukia, that's just my dog, man. I think Rukia was probably one of the characters that I had the most personal investment in. Seeing her get stronger and gain more confidence and get the adoration of her brother and stuff, it felt good to see her finally get that acknowledgement. As for Orihime, I like Orihime. I think that she falls into a lot of the same issues though that a lot of female characters in shonen do. I've talked about this before, but it's like the issue of as time goes on, their character starts to develop into just, I only care about the guy that I'm dating or the guy that I have a crush on, and that's it. But I'll acknowledge that at least the story of Bleach lets Orihime keep her agency, because it's not just that she wants to be protected by Ichigo, she also wants to get strong to protect Ichigo and protect her friends too. So that gives her a leg up over certain other characters. But speaking of Ichigo, he really grew on me, man. At first, I did not care for Ichigo at all. The whole thing about protecting your friends and shit just doesn't do much for me. But the theme of dedication and sacrifice, it definitely does. And I think I start to like Ichigo more as the series goes on, because they start to lean more into that dedicated, defiant side of Ichigo. And that's the Ichigo that I love. The way that he ignores his own well-being for the sake of others, I will always love characters like that. And with Ichigo, it's just done so well, because there's never any ulterior motives in why Ichigo is saving you. It's just because he feels like it, because that's what he wants to do. I just respect the fuck out of characters that just do what they want to do, and nobody's gonna stop them from doing what they want to do. And I really love Ichigo's dynamic with Uryu. From the jump, the way that their dynamic creates intrigue in the world building. Like instantly, as soon as Uryu shows up, you just want to learn more about the Quincy's and what happened with them in the Soul Reaper. And it uses Ichigo and Uryu's relationship as like this microcosm for the world of Bleach. It low-key giving me Naruto and Sasuke vibes, like the fated rivals, destined to be at odds type shit. Uryu might be my favorite Bleach character. I just love everything about his story. Just his relationship with his dad and his grandfather, and how he feels about the Quincy's as a whole and their history. He was definitely
Garrison, but let's go ahead.
To me, the most interesting character to follow throughout the whole story. And he really became my favorite character after that fight with Mayuri. That fight was so fire. I ain't been that hyped to see a nigga throw his life away since Gone. That is probably my favorite fight in the series, because not only does this fight build up the history of the Soul Reapers and the Quincy's, but also how it establishes Mayuri and his character motivation. And Mayuri is another one of my favorite characters.
What?
And it's crazy because during this fight, I hated that nigga, especially when he was talking about what he was doing to the Quincy's and shit, even though, to be honest, the Quincy's was tweaking. So like, in retrospect, was it that bad? But now I love that nigga, because he's a dick, he's a scumbag, but he's so solid. And he's so real about being a scumbag that's like, you gotta respect it. And he loyal, he's solid with the home team. I respect any character that's solid with their home team. Mayuri ain't never switch up, even though I thought he was going to. But he never switched up, he stayed solid with the home team, so I fuck with him. And I like characters like him that care, but show that they care in a different way. It's just like a good, unique spin on a character. And Mayuri, like a lot of the captains, get better the more you learn about the world and the more that the world starts to build. Another one like that is Kenpachi. And Kenpachi, when he was first introduced, I was ready to call that nigga overhyped, because for years before I ever touched Bleach, I always heard niggas talking about how raw Kenpachi was and how strong he was and how cool he was. So I had high hopes for this nigga. And then the first fight with Ichigo starts and I'm like, oh, he's just another meathead character. I mean, that's cool and all, but he ain't nothing special. Up until the end of his fight with Ichigo, where he shows some desire to want to get to know his Zanpakuto, I think that was the first time where I had some genuine interest in his character. And I wanted to see what direction his character went in. And I love how Kenpachi growing with his sword is not like a one-off thing. It's not like, oh, he gets one upgrade from it and then it's like, that's it. That's as strong as he's gonna get. No, he continuously learns more about his sword. He unlocks his Shikai, then he unlocks his Bankai. But Kenpachi became an all-time great character when we learned about his relationship with Unohana. That shit was fire. One, it gives way more gravity to the Kenpachi name, knowing how much that means to the both of them and how much it connected them. Plus, learning about what fighting really means to Kenpachi and why he loves it so much, and how much he loves it to the point where he's making himself weaker just so he can have good fights. That was one of the highlights of the arc for sure. And another thing that I always liked about Kenpachi that I thought was funny was his little rivalry with Byakuya. That shit was always funny to me, how they were always trying to one up each other.
Why did you move to attack him before me? Stay out of this. Why should I? It won't be my fault if I slice you up by mistake.
But Byakuya is another character that had to grow on me. But I feel like it's like that with most people because of the way that Byakuya was introduced. It's kind of like, you know, your first impression of him is kind of, oh, bro's a bitch. But you get to know him and he's not that bad. He's actually kind of cool. And I think he ends up being a great depiction on how loss can change a person. So I end up fucking with Byakuya, and to be honest, I fuck with all the captains. I know a lot of people don't fuck with Soifon. Yeah, I thought she was pretty cool. I liked her relationship with Yourrage. Toshiro, that's my little nigga. I fuck with that nigga heavy. His Bankai is so raw too. Any character with white hair, I will be there. You give a character white hair, I don't give a fuck who he is. I'm the biggest fan. Even the assistant captains, I fuck with the assistant captains heavy too. Like Rangiku, Ikaku, that's my dog. That's my nigga, man. That's a real ass nigga. Hisagi, yeah, I fuck with the assistant captains. Oh, I almost forgot about Urahara in them.
The GOAT!
I fuck with Urahara. He is a GOAT. Them little kids that was with him was annoying as fuck to me, but Urahara, you're tough. I love how he never takes nothing serious. He kind of reminds me of Gojo in that way. I know I'm probably not the first person to say that, but yeah. No, Urahara look, he give me like Shanks vibes.
He glazing, look, he glazing.
As far as villains in Bleach go, I have to start out with the scariest, most intimidating villain in the story, Grand Fisher. But not for real, Aizen is the first major villain of Bleach, and obviously I knew who Aizen was. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I didn't know who the fuck Aizen was, because he obviously has a major reputation of being one of, if not the best villain in the big three. How do I feel about him? I mean, Yeah, he was pretty good. What's ironic is Aizen also kind of reminds me of Gojo, especially with his ideology about strength and how relying on people is for the weak. I always love this trope in anime of like the strong are always the loneliest, like on some it's lonely at the top type shit. But over the course of the whole arc, Aizen keeps hammering this point home of like strength is to do it on your own. Relying on other people will only drag you down. And I love how Ichigo ends up proving him wrong in the end. How he needs the help of everyone around him to defeat Aizen. But I'd be lying if I say Aizen did not give me the chills a couple times. Like just his cold indifference to his subordinates. That one time, I don't remember who it was, but one of his niggas died. This nigga, he didn't even turn around to look at this nigga. He didn't even acknowledge that he was dying. Shit like that makes a good villain, cause a nigga like that is very satisfying to beat. But then we have the group under Aizen, which is the Espada. Well, it's all of the Arrancar, but I'm talking about the Espada right now. I already talked a little bit in my villain group video about how I feel about Okiora and Grimmjow, but there are a few others that I like. Noicha and Nell's relationship, I think that was really cool. I like the whole beast motif they were going for there. But again, a lot of the characters in the Espada just feel like they didn't get the spotlight that they needed for what their characters were. And don't even get me started on the Fracciones. Those niggas were such wastes of time. I think there might have been like 2 or 3 of the Fracciones fights that were actually enjoyable, and the rest of them were just like, okay, you're wasting time before we get to the main fights, and we can all tell. So yeah, the Arrancar were cool, but man, Yhwach and the Stern Ritter, now that's a real villain group. There were so many characters in the Stern Ritter with genuine intrigue and actually made me interested in their character. Like Grammy and his whole fight with Kenpachi and how that awakened his want to crush other people and prove his superiority. How you pronounce that nigga name? As not, with the whole fear thing. I think that was really well done. I also loved what they did with the Stern Ritter powers, where their powers felt like so much more grandiose than other powers that we've seen in this show. Their powers felt like some cosmic ancient shit from way back in the day. Like Mask, the wrestler nigga, and Valkyrie, their powers, it literally felt like these niggas were chosen by God. And I think that's kind of the vibe that Kubo was going for with this arc, and I think he did it perfectly. But the story that I loved the most with the Stern Ritter was the story between Baz B and Hashwoth. That shit was fire. Just the way that it paralleled Ichigo and Uryu's situation, that was already good. But them both being the B and being two sides of that coin, oh my god, that shit was so good. I remember reading their backstory. They might have had the best flashback in the series. Dead ass. And that brings me to Yhwach himself. I love Yhwach. I don't think I like him more than Aizen, but again, just like with the other Stern Ritter, I love how he feels like this ancient cosmic thing that's like, how the are we gonna beat this? And his ties to the greater world and his origins literally being the origins of the Quincy's themselves. In general, I just love that chosen child trope, and Yhwach is that to the max. And just his power and his ability to give and take away powers, and how that feeds into his own complex of feeling like he has ownership over everyone and everything, especially when we get his ties to Ichigo's power and we get the reveal that the nigga that we thought was Zangetsu was really a clone of Yhwach.
This shit means something to me, man.
I usually don't get caught by twists in shows, but that shit got me. That shit had me jumping around. I think that the 1,000-Year Blood War had issues just like any other Final War arc. It feels like something that's inescapable, to be honest. And also, I could really tell that the latter half of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc felt really rushed. But Yhwach himself, to me, felt like a really satisfying final villain. And I'm happy with where the series left off, even though I would love to see a sequel with Renji and Rukia's kid and Ichigo and Orihime's kid. That shit would hit. I'll read that shit over Boruto. But yeah, man, that's all I got for y'all boys today. Let me know how you feel about Bleach in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked the video. I'm really being rhetorical when I say that, because why the fuck would you still be watching the video if you didn't like the video? Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. And yeah, man, I'm gone.
Stay out the mix, I can't fuck with you.